One of the marquee matches of the season in the Premier League. Arsenal and Chelsea just seconds ago wrapping up at Stamford Bridge, a 1-1 draw between two of the top three teams in the table in England. Welcome in to our studio with an instant reaction alongside Ian Joy. I am Stefano Fusaro, and we see here a matchup that was important for the table, obviously, but Arsenal getting that 1 point. Now have a 5-point lead over Manchester City. Chelsea 6 points back of their London rivals. And now, Ian, one of the best matches that we've seen this season so far in the Premier League. And these two teams that were clearly coming in motivated, both with a little bit of, I would guess, excitement to get into this match and start finding ways to start moving up the table for Chelsea and for Arsenal to stay at the very top.
Yeah, listen, more often than not, we never really celebrate draws. I thought this was one of the best Premier League games of the season, and obviously the red card in the first half made it interesting. Many people were saying that's going to ruin the spectacle. I thought the spectacle got even better. I think the game plan for Maresca at half-time really was intriguing to me, making some really interesting substitutions. And then Arsenal trying to play their game, just struggling to really get that momentum, even though their effort was there, their desire was there, their willingness to go forward was clearly there. I just thought both teams just trying to find a way to win the game was the perfect result. And at the end of the day, I would say a draw was probably a fair result as well. But this game had it all. I mean, it was a brilliant performance, and the referee's performance was interesting. But overall, I think both teams really went for it. It was a juggernaut of a game.
What did you make of that red card in the first half with Moisés Caicedo? It was a difficult challenge. I know that sometimes you look at some of these challenges and you say maybe the game's got a bit soft. What did you think of the red card, and how did it affect?
Yeah, I'm glad you're telling it to me. That is a bit of a soft decision. Listen, there was a time where this would not have been a red card, but I think nowadays, anytime you see the studs on the shin or on the ankle in the way that it was due from Caicedo, then eventually you will see that red card being given. I think Anthony Taylor provided the yellow card because he didn't quite see exactly how the contact was made. It happened so quickly for officials and for players out there. So it happened really quickly. He clearly missed it, but caught the collision. So he gave the yellow card. But first ever red card coming there from Moisés Caicedo in the Premier League in his 130th appearance. Never good for him, never good for the game. We would have expected that to have maybe made it a bit more defensive-minded from Chelsea. But let's not face any facts other than the fact that Chelsea are an aggressive team this year. That's 7 red cards they've picked up in 15 matches, their last 15 matches, which is an insane record. And I think this obviously kind of changed the game in a way, but not as much as I thought it would have done. I thought it would have been completely more defensive-minded from Chelsea, and it wasn't. It was more offensive, more counter-attack, and it was exciting.
It surely was. And the fans at Chelsea, at Stamford Bridge, were clearly shaken by that red card. And because we have somebody at Stamford Bridge,
let's do it.
James Benge. Let's go chat to him because he was at the game. James, you're still there at Stamford Bridge. Tell us, how was the atmosphere and the moment where the red card happens? What happened there with the fans as far as that red card and Chelsea getting back into this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think even the most one-eyed Chelsea fan would have to have admitted that was a red. But I thought Ian hit the nail on the head. The 70s, you can't tackle like that anymore. And even the Chelsea fans who are always riled up by Anthony Taylor, I think you didn't hear too many complaints beyond the initial reaction of mock incredulity. I think for them the frustration was probably more that someone like Pierre Hincapié or even Victor Gyökeres at the death didn't follow Caicedo for an early bath, because this was a blood and thunder game, to put it mildly.
Hey, James, let's get your reaction overall from the game, because to me this was one of the best games that we have seen in the Premier League this season. And I think sometimes when you get an early red card, you never quite know what to expect. But actually, both teams really went for it. Chelsea, you got to give them a ton of credit. They tried to play the counter-attacking. They created some chances. They had more shots on target than Arsenal did in the second period. Your overall reaction from the game?
Overwhelmingly, like, Chelsea end up in credit. Huge performance, especially down to 10 men. Yeah, you know, kind of going back to your stats, you always wonder if they're quite familiar with this now, and they know exactly what to do. There were so many times where I was really impressed by their courage. You know, one Arsenal corner that Saka was taking, they had 3 players up on the edge of the halfway line ready to counter-attack, and actually Robert Sanchez should have got the ball out to them quicker. So I think equally, though, the fact of the matter is we end this game kind of with Chelsea being where they were beforehand, and they might just feel like this was an opportunity to close the gap on Arsenal that slipped away. Arsenal were poor. They were so far off their best level. They looked like a team that had expended too much energy against Tottenham, against Bayern Munich, and were maybe there to be got at. My question, the big question I have coming out of this game is, could Chelsea have played that way for 90 minutes with 11 men? If they did, they'd have won that, and they'd have won it well. As is, I just think they couldn't quite hold on, and they couldn't quite push home for the winner late on. So a draw may be a fair result to punish Caicedo's moment of madness.
I'm not sure if it was your dodgy internet here at Stamford Bridge, but did you say that you didn't think that Arsenal were up to the task in that second half? I don't think they had maybe they weren't very clinical in front of goal, but I still thought that they had a pretty decent performance against a Chelsea side that, look, has made their life very difficult in this match.
Yeah, sorry about the internet. It turns out the world's media are here and they're all filing match reports at the exact same time. I was quite unimpressed with Arsenal. I think they really sort of struggled for ideas. It didn't help, of course, that 3-4 of their defenders ended up on yellow cards, so they were almost continually on the brink themselves, and they had to play a bit cautiously. And I thought that caution started to enter their game. There were moments when Ødegaard came on the pitch where they had a little bit more guile. I think mostly I would say this is more about how well Chelsea defended, how strong they were in the duels. Reece James, man of the match by a country mile, one of the best performances I've ever seen, and I'm a huge Reece James fan, one of his best performances. But yeah, I thought Arsenal just lacked a little bit of oomph, but it's fine. You know, that's fine if you then come away from that game with a point, with a 5-point lead at the top of the Premier League, and you have Victor Gyökeres coming back. You'll have Martin Ødegaard potentially back in the 11 as well. So plenty of options, and maybe William Saliba too. We do have to say they were without Saliba and Gabriel, and no shame in coming to a ground like this without your 2-star centre-backs and getting a point. Yeah,
well said, James. And you touched upon a very important player that actually had a real impact game today in Reece James in midfield for Chelsea. I thought he was outstanding. I'm intrigued to see what everybody else thinks about his performance. Player of the match performance as far as I am concerned. He's really slotted in well in that midfield area. And actually we had 2 England internationals going head-to-head with Declan Rice going up against him. Your overall thoughts watching him in person, Reece James from midfield, what impressed you? What could he do better? And what did you see in comparison against Declan Rice today?
So tactically shrewd, Reece James. You'd see moments where he'd drop in between the defenders, make a back three and build up. He could man mark Rice in one passage of play. Of course, his sort of technical ability to spread play was excellent. Rice had moments. There was this one phenomenal tackle on Pedro Neto, who thought he'd skinned him in the penalty area, and Rice just sticks one of those telescopic legs out to save the danger. I thought he was someone that also looked like he was tiring a little bit. There was definitely a moment in the second half where Arteta was growing frustrated with the slightly loopy, slightly loose balls across field that Rice was playing. So he tired, but you know, in flashes you saw why he's one of the best midfielders in the world.
Yeah, and we talk about Reece James. Reece James has never been, his quality's never been a doubt. It's been his availability and not being around because of injuries. When he's on the pitch and when he's fit, he's been one of the better midfielder or right backs, however you want to call it, in the Premier League. I want to talk real quick on Arsenal, just one more thing, because if you would have told them at the beginning of this week, they would have had 2 wins and a draw with the matches that they had, and you wouldn't have had Saliba and Gabriel in this match against Chelsea, they would have taken it. So I think they have to be happy after these past 3 games this week.
100%. The performance you might not be happy with, but the result you would. We have to say they had played 1 Premier League game without Saliba and Gabriel since Saliba sort of came into the team in the summer of 2022, and that was against Southampton, one of the worst teams ever in the Premier League. They adapted to it really well. I was really impressed with how players like Mascara, Zubamendi, before he came off, was doing such a smart job of shielding the back four, and they sort of played within themselves quite shrewdly. And look, you know, from a points perspective, this is ideal. They've played, as far as I can see, every one of the big 6. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they've done a lot of those games away from home, so they've set themselves up really nicely for the run in. The players are coming back. Arteta said that Saliba shouldn't be out for too long, so things are going pretty well for Arsenal, it must be said. Yeah, well said, James. I think it's important, and champions tend to find a way to get results, whether it's a draw or picking up important points in a victory. It wasn't the victory, it was the point. But it almost looked like it was going to go in a different direction, the way the referee started this game. Yellow card happy in the first 30 minutes, by the way, Anthony Taylor. Anyone who follows you on social media can tell that you weren't too happy with his performance in the opening part of the game. You know, none of the decisions felt wrong, absolutely wrong. but you can, as a referee, you can set the tone for the game. And to me, it felt like a game where the two sides, especially just before half-time, were just hunting fouls on each other. Like, what you don't want is a game where each team isn't really playing to kick the ball in the other team's net. They're playing to try and draw a foul that they can win. And that would be my criticism of him. I don't think it was one of those games where you sort of say this decision he made was a howler, but maybe he could have set a different tempo for this game. And I wonder if that's a question he'll ask himself.
James Benge, thanks for joining us just minutes after the end of the match between Chelsea and
go and enjoy
Arsenal
the dodgy Wi-Fi, will you?
Bridge. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I go inside now?
Yeah, please
go
do.
inside.
Get yourself a pint.
Go get warm. Here are the lineups that we saw in this match. And interesting, obviously, the biggest issue, obviously, with Arsenal not having their two-star center backs, and you heard James mention it right there. Yep. They've only played one Premier League match since they've both been at the club without both of them. This was the second one.
Yeah, but yet again, it's another great performance, I think, defensively from Arsenal. I know, obviously, they'll be disappointed that they conceded a goal. Very, very good goal at that as well. Corner kick comes in from Reece James, and I think from Chalobah, it was a very good header, very difficult to defend. But the actual performance, maybe the weaker link was Calafiore, and that's probably why he was replaced, sitting on a yellow card as well. In Capia Mosquera, I mean, Arsenal are doing a fabulous job right now of being able to replace players and put another one in to just basically do the job as if no one was really missing. It's incredible. Midfield was a battle. Zubimendi got taken off in this game, and at one point I thought, okay, this is really interesting. Is he in the game? Is he not in the game? I think it was very interesting to see how they made that change as well. I do love the midfield battle as well. Caicedo will be very disappointed to have picked up that red card, but I think Chelsea will be relatively happy with the overall performance and absolutely delighted they ended up picking up a point. Yeah. But this was a real fabulous Premier League performance. It really was. Anthony Taylor was involved in the game, as James pointed out there. Yellow card happy. Looked like he had a brand new yellow card. But to me in particular, I think this was an outstanding performance from both teams. And I wouldn't be saying anything less than that from Arsenal as well. This is not an easy game. Playing against 10 players is tough. Arsenal will be happy with the point as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it really did change the game, not only because of Caicedo having to leave. Esteval then has to come out of the game because of the tactical changes he needs to make with Caicedo off and only 10 men on the pitch. So it definitely did change things. One person I have to talk about is Merino. Every time he gets an opportunity, Ian, every time he gets a chance, he scores, he does well for Arsenal. 10
Premier League goals, 7 of them coming from headers as well. Maybe I've had more, but Sanchez had an outstanding performance for Chelsea in goal as well. But what a great game that was.